Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're talking Why the Last Man. We're up to episode 4 now. A new show currently streaming on Hulu. If you haven't checked it out yet, I think it's very good. It's a really fun show. But we're going to do a recap and review of this. So I'm going to do a quick recap as quick as I can of the whole episode. We'll talk about it throughout, and then I'll give you guys my rating at the end. And if you want to discuss in the comments after, that'd be great. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video. Please make sure to subscribe if you're new here. We talk about all the new movies, TV shows, everything like that. So yeah, it's a good time. But let's get into Why the Last Man, episode 4. So episode 4 is titled Karen and Benji, and it starts out pretty weird. It doesn't start out where we left off with the whole helicopter crash and everything that was going on there. I know there's a lot of theories that people said Agent 35 actually had a part to play in that helicopter crash to keep that secret of Yorick being the last man on Earth. And I think it's a very good theory. I mean, this kind of episode kind of confirms it in a couple of ways. But I don't know actually if I'm on board with that theory, and I'm going to explain to you guys why at the end of this recap. But so this episode starts out kind of weird. It starts out this fantasy musical of Agent 35. Obviously some sort of dream or something like that. We're brought back to reality to show that Yorick and Agent 35 are actually just walking in the woods. So they're setting up camp in the woods, and they have a little conversation that's ultimately there to tell us that Yorick does also have inclinations that Agent 35 might have had a part in the helicopter crash. It doesn't straight up accuse her, but just hints at it. We then cut to Hiro and Sam, who find this abandoned house, and they agree to stay the night there. Some other dialogue conversations happen here, but the most important one is when Hiro reveals to Sam that she was there with Mike when he died. This is sort of big because she doesn't reveal that she's the one that killed him, like we saw in that first episode when she stabs him in the neck. She just reveals that she was there with him. So this is kind of like it's big, I think, because she doesn't tell her Hiro that she's a murderer, and I think that will obviously be a revelation that comes later on the show. And now we have like this killer in the midst of this group, right? Then we cut to the scene with Yorick and Agent 355. This is where they agree just to like wash their clothes in the river. You know, Yorick has to strip naked. Just a little scene that sets up the next one. Hiro and Sam go to the pharmacy where they meet Mackenzie and Nora, the mother and the daughter. And Hiro helps Mackenzie because remember she fell in the shovel and she hurt herself. So Hiro has to help the wound, and they agree to stay the night together, all 4 of them now. So then Agent 355, she's washing the clothes, and on her way back to the camp, she finds 2 strangers. This is one instant that I said that I don't know if I believe in that theory of her participating in the helicopter crash. This scene kind of helps me with that theory that I don't think she actually played a part in that, only because it just doesn't line up, I think, with her character then, because right now she sees the 2 strangers, right? She pulls the gun out on them, and then she puts it away, right? It's kind of like symbolizing to us that she doesn't want to be violent anymore. Maybe that's because she did play a part in the helicopter crash. She feels super guilty, you know? So she doesn't want to resort to violence. That is probably what it is. But she kind of has a dialogue with the 2, but then Yorick comes out and chases them off. Agent 355 gets mad at Yorick for coming out because if he was seen, you know, that would sabotage everything. But Yorick kind of says that he helped because she would have killed them, so he's, you know, not letting her kill anyone. After this, Yorick and 355 go to the market where they look at this motorcycle. Yorick thinks he sees Beth, right, which is his it's his current fiance, right? We haven't seen her yet. I'm sure she just thinks that Yorick is dead and, you know, has moved on. So I'm excited to see when Yorick actually finds her, like where she's at in her life, because you know that she's moved on or something like that, because she wasn't even on board with the engagement in the beginning. But yeah, so Yorick goes and tries to chase Beth, even though it's probably not Beth. And he finds himself in this, this area that he's not supposed to be in. So these 5 policewomen kind of surround him, saying you're not supposed to be here. They force him onto his knees, and they actually force him to take his mask off. So they take his mask off, and they see that he's a guy. And this is where I was like, okay, this episode's really good. I thought that, I wasn't expecting someone to see his face or whatever. And it's like not that big of a deal because there are, as we've seen, a lot of like transgender women who identify as men in this. So I'm sure they have come across maybe a couple of men, that were actually women. And so maybe this isn't as big of a deal as we thought it was, like them actually seeing his face. I don't think they're going to go out there and be like, oh, we saw the first man, because they haven't really confirmed it yet. I think until they see, like a dick, that's when they'll start spreading rumors around. But yeah, so before anything crazy can happen, Agent 355 comes, kind of like starts whipping ass, starts taking them down. I think here she also tries to not resort to like killing, but she does fight them off. And then they escape via the motorcycle. So once they've gotten to like a safe distance, they stop at this bridge. They have another conversation. Yorick reveals that he lost his phone back there, so he wants to go back for it. Agent 355 says you need to like grow up. That's so immature for you to want to go back for a phone. Like there's more important things at stake. And then Yorick kind of accuses her of being too violent and kind of almost brings up the helicopter incident again, but stops himself. So actually, now that I think of it, maybe she did have a part to play in the helicopter crash, because they made it pretty obvious. But maybe like now she doesn't want to be violent anymore because she feels guilty for doing that. But then I also think it's such a quick change, like she goes from killing these people, right, the two helicopter people, to all of a sudden not wanting to be violent without any sort of like, character moment of realization for that we saw. So I think maybe she didn't play a part, but then maybe she would have been more devastated that they were dead. But she's also a spy and realizes that people just die and she needs to move on. So I don't know. I want to know what you guys think. If she did kill those people in the helicopter, if not, I think I'm more on board with maybe she did, and maybe that's why she doesn't want to be violent, right? Because she feels guilty. So after this, we cut to Sam and Hiro, who are sleeping in a bed together. They kiss. Hiro kind of pulls away, and that's it. Three women appear to Nora, right? And they're riding on horses. This is where I don't know if you guys felt this. I got big Walking Dead vibes. I was a huge Walking Dead fan for most of the show, and then I kind of fell off during season 7 after Negan and stuff like that. But this is where the episode I was like, you know what, this does kind of feel like Walking Dead. I mean, you got these different sort of groups. It's in that post-apocalyptic sort of world. It's just not as like dramatic as Walking Dead. You know how like everything was like labeled in Walking Dead, like, oh, these are like the walkers. These are like, this group is called whatever they're called, where it's like, we just find different groups and different people, and it's not as dramatic, So these three women arrive at the house, and they have guns, and they're obviously not very empathetic or sympathetic or anything like that, because they're literally about to just execute them all. I guess even the little girl, like right away. It's only until Nora reveals that Hiro is an EMT, and she overheard them talking about this girl named Kate who's in their group who's hurt. So she said that Hiro is an EMT and could help Kate. So they agree, and they bring all of them back to the camp because Hiro says, if you want me, you're going to have to take all of us. So they bring her back to wherever they were at, the warehouse. They kind of blindfold them. They bring them there. And Kate's like on this operating table, so Hiro's kind of like operating on her. All of a sudden, the leader of this group, Roxanne, she shows up, and she just straight up executes Kate. She brings out a gun and shoots her on the operating table. The other people are mad that she did this, but she said it was like mercy. So Roxanne pretty much agrees to help Hiro and Nora and Sam and Mackenzie, and she's like, if you guys want to help us, we'll help you. So she offers them shelter and food and everything. So before the episode ends, Nora pulls Hiro aside and tells her not to tell the rest of them who her mother is. And we know that her mother is Diane Lane, right? Who's the Madam President of this show. And so Hiro's kind of like confused, like, how do you know that? And then Nora's like, she reveals that she used to work at the White House. Pretty cool revelation, because I totally forgot that Nora worked at the White House. I wasn't even thinking about that. I even forgot Hiro is the daughter of Diane Lane's character. I just wasn't thinking, it's been a while since I saw the last 3 episodes. So I was like, oh my god, I totally forgot. It's such a cool, element already packed onto this, I think pretty cool episode. So then the last shot is Hiro walking into this warehouse, and it's full of food and supplies, and that's how the episode ends. So I'll give you guys my rating right now for this episode. I'm going to give it a 3.9 out of 5. Pretty much just how I've rated the rest of the other episodes, maybe besides episode 2 that I give a 3.8 to. I think it's just as good as that first, third, and even second episode. I think they're all in the same tier of greatness. I do think this is a really great show and has potential to just be something really cool. Maybe we could get, I don't know how far the comics go, and I think we are starting to differentiate from the comic storyline, from what I hear, because I never read the comics. But I think the show is really cool. I love the whole, just all these different elements, the last man thing. He's going to Beth, we got Hiro and Sam, their whole relationship, them being brother and sister, and they haven't really seen each other yet. She doesn't even know if he's alive. She probably thinks he's dead, obviously. And it's just like so many things that will lead to cool revelations, to cool moments later on the show, and hopefully a good payoff, as the show does a good job of pacing. I think this episode, some things maybe are a little slow, but I wouldn't say it's anything that would degrade the episode in any way. But like I said, I think this show is starting to go into like Walking Dead vibes, which I think is cool, especially for October as it comes up. I always liked watching Walking Dead around October, when it's cold out and you're just putting on Walking Dead, cool zombie show. And this just sort of feels like it. Like I said, post-apocalyptic, now we got all these different groups coming in. Obviously, some groups are good, some groups are probably bad. We thought this Roxanne group would be bad, but Roxanne seems to have empathy, even though she just executed Kate, but she was showing mercy. So, I don't know. Is she good? Is she bad? They have this whole warehouse of food and supplies. Maybe Hiro will want to, share this and tell everyone, and Roxanne will not want to do that. They want to keep all this to themselves. Maybe there could be some conflict there. But I'm just excited to see. This is the show that I'm most excited for every single week. Out of all the shows I'm watching right now, if you keep up with my channel, you can see some of the stuff I'm watching. this is the show that I'm just most excited to see next episode. What's gonna happen? I think it just feels really high stakes, really interesting, really cool. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. What you think of the show in general. Please make sure to check out my other video if you want to check it out when I rate the episodes 1 to 3. But that's it. Make sure to like the video, like always. Make sure to subscribe if you're new here. And thank you guys. And I'll see you in the next video.